Finally, the moment a couple of you have been waiting for.
It's all like bing bong, Jack.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Duval and St. Johns County. The show for Jag fans by Jag fans.
You can't have a newcomer come in and steal the show.
Here are your hosts, Franklin and Michael how you say it? DeZoba. Welcome to the Jaggernaut Podcast.
Thanks for joining us once again. My name's
Frank.
Beat me to it.
Yeah. Well, you can get the closing one. Right? Yeah.
I'm Frank. This is Mike.
What's up, guys?
We're going to discuss training camp, which has gotten started this week. As we do this, it is Tuesday. It began yesterday, so we've got
second practice today.
Two practices in. So right off the bat, on this point, days of practice. The thing that did jump out at me that became a bit of a discussion yesterday, I noticed, was the fact that, and I sort of remember this being a topic of discussion with mini camp, that there were additional days that Doug Peterson decided we did not need. And then apparently they could have started the rookies practice a little bit, like 2 or 3 days earlier. And he decided that, no, we don't need that either. I'm not sure I quite understand this strategy. Everybody, I don't know if everybody, but there's two trains of thought on it. This is a mistake, is A, and B is Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. He knows what he's doing. So where do you side on this aspect of training camp and practice?
Dude, I'm torn. Okay, so here's why I'm torn. I'm torn because he's Doug Peterson and he won a Super Bowl. You know, he expects these guys. He said, coming out of training camp, what are you hearing? You heard from Josh Allen today. He treats us like men. Well, Josh Allen, I think other people have treated you like a man and it hadn't translated to wins on the field. You know, did Doug Marrone not treat you like a man? Yeah. So being that we're Jacksonville and we were hot butter garbage last year, shouldn't we have wanted these guys in? Shouldn't we have wanted as much reps and work as we could possibly get? So that's the other side of the coin. So I'm torn. I don't know which is better. I don't. I want to say that it's Doug Peterson. He knows best. So let's go with him. But remember, we went with Urban Meyer too. You know, we all sort of got finger banged. Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm torn on it because I think there's two ways I look at it. It is that I just think like you just said, we need practice. We're a bad team. It's a whole new administration. I don't know why you wouldn't want as much practice as you could possibly get. A bunch of new players doing new things. That seems self-explanatory to me. The other aspect of that is that I have thought for some time that the teams that win are the teams that don't necessarily do what everybody else does because everybody else is doing it. The innovators, the ones who think outside the box, the ones who do things because it's right for their team. So I'm hoping that that's what we're seeing here. Maybe we start a trend. Maybe I'm curious as to whether or not they start a little slow and begin to build and build and build, as opposed to like the early Tom Coughlin days where it was like 2 a days and you kick their butt through.
Now, according to the CBA, they have to ramp up. They're in what's called their ramp up period, which means that the first practice cannot be in shells. It's only helmet and shorts only, no shoulder pads, and it can only be for an hour. And that's what we got yesterday. Today, same deal, but a little longer. And each day, they're going to ramp up to get into full pads. Sunday, here's a date for you, Frank. Sunday's the first full padded practice. So I'm anxiously anticipating hearing what is coming out of there. The reason why I say hearing is because fans, us normal folk, we're not allowed at training camp. It's at Episcopal High School or Episcopal Field or whatever, Episcopal High School. So we're not allowed. So now we have to wait. We have to rely on the very people I dislike the most to get my information from.
There's
You
a
know,
lot
the
of
only-
people there. There's a lot of independent sources there too.
Yes, and that's what's good. I've noticed that this year. I've noticed that this year more than any other year, that there are a lot of there are podcast people just like we are who are out there and they're able to give us their take. I like that. I hope they keep doing that. I hope that's the way that we get our information. I hope that's the way our information's disseminated. Because the way it is currently now is
Yeah,
it's
no,
not
and
good.
on it, I thought of you and your constant criticism to that regard when they were speaking so glowingly about Trevor the past couple days. So if you have heard this, or if you're just not paying attention to it, essentially they are saying he looks a lot better than he did last off season. He looks to be crisp on his throws. Like they say, this is exactly what you want to see from your generational quarterback. He's fitting the part, that sort of thing. Now, it's the glowing sunshine sort of talk. So you take it with a grain of salt. But I think if they were silent, because we have to discuss the idea that they don't tend to want to deal with the negatives or speak the negatives. So maybe that's something to look out for. Who's not being talked about? Maybe that's because they're bad right now or looking terrible.
When it comes specifically to the ex-players, that's what you have to look for coach speak and guys who are not being talked about, because they will not flip on their fraternity. The NFL is a fraternity of men, and most of them won't say anything bad about other ones.
Yeah.
So that's why I want more independent people out there.
But I think that at a certain point, I mean, what are you going to learn? If somebody is struggling and you throw them under the bus and make it seem like it's the end of the world, it is just practice after all. And remember, we've discussed this before. I don't know why his name constantly eludes me, but the Cincinnati receiver that led Chase.
Jamar Chase?
Yeah.
Jamar
Chase. The word was he wasn't playing well in preseason in preseason and training camp, and he lit up the world when the regular season started. So how much stock do you put in any negative stuff anyway? The truth of the matter is that we're really just fans. Do we need to know all this information?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. You want to keep your fan base informed, but all the nuances that go on, does it matter whether you find out something now does you knowing translate anything to the field? I would argue it doesn't.
And I argue differently, because if I know we're going to be hot butter garbage, I could prepare myself mentally to expect hot butter garbage on the field. How many times have I told you being a Jag fan is like riding a roller coaster? You have your highs and your lows, and man, we are like the epicenter of the highs and the lows. When we're low, we are beyond pukage low.
Are you saying there are highs?
We're good. Yeah, well,
when did this happen?
2017. It's like once every 7 years, we'll make some noise.
I think you're right. 2010 was the one. Wasn't that the Garrard?
Yep.
Yeah. Huh.
So yeah, it's like once every 7 years, we'll look like an NFL team, and then we'll just go.
That means we got 2 more years to go then.
So yeah, I want to know this because I want to know, okay, this is what was said about this player. Let me look at him with my own eyes. Let me see. Oh yeah, damn, that dude can't catch. What the hell's going on with him? Pay more attention. One, it gives me somebody to pay attention to, whether it's negative or positive, but it also tempers my expectations. One of the things that I think is wrong with fans is that we get so into it. Why? Because we I don't know why, because maybe we have nothing else. I don't know. But we get so into it. And then when our team sucks, it's such a downer.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I was saying, our mutual friend who's a Bills fan, that his expectation, it's interesting. His expectation for the Jags is that we can't even win the AFC South, that we'll be the worst team in the AFC South, and the Bills have to win the Super Bowl. So it's like, okay, I mean, I get the expectation for the Bills because I think as a fan, I probably would be in his position. So what I'm getting at is that there's a silver lining to this cloud of being a Jag fan, and it's that we don't have the expectations that other teams have and are placed on themselves, by themselves, and by others. All we have to try to do. I mean, we just got done going through the AFC South. I think we basically said we're going to be third.
Yeah, but as fans, we want those expectations because that means we're
agree.
good.
We would exchange places with good teams for sure.
Yeah,
yes,
easy.
I would exchange places, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean,
but I'm just saying there is a benefit. We don't have that extra stuff. All we can do, we can just sit back and see the building of a franchise, hopefully.
I think we've built one. I think we've built one every year since 2017.
We've been rebuilding. We've been doing a lot of rebuilding. That's for sure. Tearing down, renovating, but never quite.
Yeah, every year we knock over the Lincoln logs, and then we build our log cabin again, and it doesn't last.
So, couple notes I took away. So one of the big things to start us off the training camp was James Robinson is not starting on the PUP physically unable to perform list. And that's great to me. Tempered expectations. He is coming off of an Achilles.
Let me ask you a question. Have you seen highlights of what he's doing out of camp?
Yeah, I did.
Why? What's the difference between being on the PUP list and doing what he's currently doing versus non-PUP list and doing what he's currently doing? Because he's not participating with the rest of the team.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah,
I don't know the answer to that question.
He's not participating with the rest of the team.
Okay, fair. That's a good point. I don't know what the designation necessarily means in regards to timetables. Maybe there's something that the NFL, it'd be good to look up, I suppose, what the rules are for that. There's got to be some reason you put a designation on somebody. Then maybe what they're basically saying, and I'm sure this has to do with the union and things like that. Maybe that if you're on the PUP list, it makes me wonder, would they be out there? I don't even remember if guys on PUP are actually still out there, like what you're talking about, like there is no difference technically. But maybe even if they are out there, let's assume that you're right, people on PUP would be out there. Maybe they're locked in when they're designated. And maybe what it is a scenario where you can bring people in the meantime to fill the additional spots that you have.
But wouldn't you want to? We're the Jags. We were all full.
Well, what it may mean is their expectation is that although he's coming along slower than everybody else because of the injury, that they do expect him to be participating relatively soon.
Again, they said
I could understand.
They said mid-August. Right. So mid-August is what, 2.5 weeks away?
That's when he's going to start practicing.
Well, that's what they said. That's their expectations was mid-August.
Well, on that point, Devin Lloyd is not on the PUP, and yet he's also injured.
Yeah, he might be mid-August too with his hamstring. Apparently, just in case none of y'all know, Devin Lloyd, our When did we get him? Did we trade back up in the first round to get him?
Yeah,
I think so,
believe we
right? Because
did.
we gave up our second rounder to do that. So our second first rounder, Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah, is a Ute. He pulled a hammy during stretching yesterday. That's not a good sign, young man. I love your enthusiasm. I love the Duval, but if you can't take care of your body and those soft tissues, the soft tissue injuries, that's predominantly on you.
You think so?
I think so. Yeah. I think it could be dehydration or lack of water. Could be lack of stretching. I mean, I don't know, but I really think that when you get those soft tissue injuries, that's on you for whatever you're doing. You're not taking care of your body the way you're supposed to be.
Man, you're
So-
already scolding the rookie, man. Who are you? Who do you think you are?
Well, I'm nobody. I make a ton less than you, and I sit in this office here talking about you. That's what I do.
The other thing that I don't, this must not be serious, I suppose, but nobody's talked about this guy much at all. If I'm being honest about this or observant, Darius Williams, the cornerback that we picked up, free agent from the Rams, hometown boy. He's also injured. I haven't heard anybody talk about him. I just noticed that on the Jaguars website. So he's another person that apparently is not
Yeah,
practicing.
no, and nobody's saying anything about him. But again, he's not on the pup list.
Right.
So it does make me wonder if maybe Peterson did something. Maybe there's some kind of stigma, a negative stigma to a player starting camp on the pup list.
Mm.
So Peterson threw
That
him a
sounds
bone.
conspiratorial. I like the way you're thinking.
Peterson threw him a bone and said, "Look, we're going to have you guys back in a few weeks. Nobody's starting on the pup list." Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
maybe
is possible.
it's a PR thing.
Yep.
The term becomes more of a story, and maybe you sort of mitigate that by not even putting them on the pup. I don't know. It's a good point, though.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Yep. Word out of camp today: Trevor Lawrence, 17 of 17. Woo!
In shorts.
Come on, man, in shorts. That's
But
right.
hey, you put the caveat out there that it's shorts and it's not there. The bullets aren't live, but you'd much rather see that than the opposite.
Then 17
That's
drops.
just how it works,
Yeah.
You temper the positives, but you're glad to see the positives nonetheless.
So does that bother you? Do you think it's good, it's bad, it's indifferent? What do you feel about these early practices? Let me ask you that way. That's probably a better question.
I'm not following. What do you mean by what?
Okay,
What
do
bother
you
me?
think are you getting excited? Are you allowing the fact that Trevor Lawrence went 17
Yes.
to 17 today to get you excited?
I allow it to raise the bar a little bit. I mean, you said, you talked about this just a minute ago, how you want to know how you're supposed to feel going into the season. Everyone agrees, every single Jag fan and every single non-Jag fan would agree, looking at the Jaguars, that everything hinges on what Trevor's performance. So if remember the Colts game, my position has been, and I've taken flack in our small inner circle of compatriots for calling this a mulligan. And by the way, before that term was being used, you're hearing it now a lot of places, that last season is a mulligan season for the team generally, and Lawrence especially. But you need to see it now. And so
talking about, man, you can't.
We're seeing
The team got finger bang, 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 bang,
And that's what-
bang.
look, and
That's not
here's
a mulligan.
philosophically speaking, this is in line with what I have come to think about football, which is coaches can ruin a team. They can especially ruin a quarterback. And the fact that I
Can
still
ruin an
looked at
individual.
Lawrence and saw a a guy that you could build around. Like he flashed in the way that you expect a generational guy to flash in the midst of all the trash that we dealt with. So you hold on to that. It took a while to get the herb stank off. And as soon as, in that Colts game, that was an NFL team that we saw. We've seen it before where the Jags have teased us with something like that, dangled a decent game, and you get hyped to go in the offseason only to be dashed. We got to temper it a bit. But so when you see Lawrence coming out, this is a guy that seems prepared. How about that? I'll tell you what, I'd rather have a rookie coming out, or second-year player now, coming out looking like he's prepared and ready to go, instead of having a guy you just paid a ton of money like Kyler Murray, where they're putting into his contract that he has to actually study the playbook additionally. This looks like a guy who you don't have to build that into his contract. He's taking in the information, because passing game stuff is coordination stuff. And so already they're out the gate with the coordination. Think about this. How often have you said, well, the defense always has the advantage early on in training camp, blah, blah, blah. Almost every training camp. Well, we're not hearing that.
I still agree. And here's why we're not hearing that. We're not hearing that because the pads aren't on. So
that's a good point. That's a good point. The defense will catch back up when the pads come back up. Yeah,
so
that's a real good point.
During this warm-up period, when the defense cannot hit these people and cannot break on the balls, they can get in the way sort of, but they can't throw their bodies out there. They can't do the stuff that they would normally do. The edge goes to the offense.
Right.
Okay. So, and you see it here or there, but 17 out of 17, that's nice. That's nice. I like it. I like to hear that. However, I think that at some point, maybe it's Sunday, maybe it's Monday during the second, the defense will catch back up. I want to see what happens when those pads come on. That's really when the meat and potatoes.
Well, I'll tell you what, if Trevor was batting 50%, then the pads come on and he goes down to 25 and 30%, that's going to suck. He's batting 90, 100% right now. You put the pads on and he drops down to 60, 75% completion rating. I'm fine with that. Defense can still make plays at times. Trevor still looks crisp and good most of the time.
Ultimately, that's what you want to hear. That is what you want to hear. You want to hear that maybe one day the defense won, and then the next day it was the offense. Or you want to hear, well, the defense won, but man, there were 3 touchdown passes to whatever. That's really what you want to hear. You want to hear a bit of positive from both sides of the ball.
You remember last year when we were talking about the training camp, and I brought this up because it got a little weird to me when Treadwell and who's the guy?
What do you mean a little weird?
Well, there was this talk about how great the receivers looked in camp. You remember that? And it's like, oh, Treadwell, this retread guy is looking good. And then who's the guy that's with the Texans now, the Hurricane? He was on we had these 3 guys.
Philip Dorsett.
We had these guys that came into our camp that nobody else in the league seemed to have wanted, that kind of burned out. They were supposed to have potential, but never did anything. All of a sudden they're running around catching everything. And I said, whoa, before we get hyped on this, what does this mean about our secondary here? Everybody's like, oh, we've got all these gems. And then the season began and we realized, it probably was our secondary not playing very good.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the receivers.
Right.
Or unless they had the opposite Jamar Chase. It was like a bizarro land where they could catch everything in preseason, but when the regular season started, they couldn't catch a cold.
Right.
Or COVID.
Everything's COVID.
Everything's COVID. Everything's coming up COVID.
So on that point, receivers, it's what we call segue in the business.
I didn't know that. I'm new to this.
I don't know.
It's a segue.
Hard term. I think it sounds right.
Yeah. And I think we used it correctly. Yeah.
Christian Kirk is looking good as well. So
That dude looks like he might have some wheels. I still, again, I want to see it in a game. I want to see it in, I want to see him in pads. But him and ETN, I don't know. Now, granted, look, this is just YouTube highlights because that's all we get. But they looked faster than everybody else. It could be maybe shorter legs move quicker or appear to move quicker. It's possible.
yeah,
But they did look faster than everybody else out there. It's like
Kirk and ETN.
yeah, I don't want to say it's another gear, but it looks like they are eating up land faster than anybody else out there.
And it could be what you talked about. The defense is reacting a little slow because I mean it's the nature of defense to react, and the offense knows where they're going. So you get that
Well, I
half
mean-
a step, you explode.
Yeah, I don't need a defender on them for me to look at him and say, holy shit, that guy can fly.
Yeah,
That guy can move. All I need to see is from point A to point B, how fast did he cover that piece of ground?
yeah.
You know? And that's what I'm saying. Just watching some bad angles, some bad YouTube angles, I'm looking at them and I'm like, it looks like they are covering ground fast.
We'll
So,
see. I mean, ETN's supposed to coming off of a Liz Frank injury too. So 2 running backs, both coming off of injuries.
yeah.
So in a AFC South, as we've covered in the most recent videos, which is running back centric.
Yes. Run the
And
ball,
so-
stop the run.
And I will say this, and it bears repeating. This is something that I kind of came away with as we reviewed the 3 other teams in our division. Wide receiver cores aren't that great. Tight ends aren't great. The pass catchers in our division are not substantial. If they're good, they're coming off of injury, some stuff like that, or rookies, or I mean, it's
Yeah, we don't technically got like a DK Metcalf, older Julio Jones, a Jamar Chase,
no.
who Justin Jefferson. Yeah, we don't have one of those guys in this division.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks is the one that's probably the most established
Probably closest.
in our division. So again, it bears repeating, and this is something, we think the Colts will take the division. They look like the strongest team, and we expect the Titans to kind of come back a little bit. That's the way we're looking at it now. Who knows what'll happen, but it's an open division. So we'll see if the wide receiver core, if we could come out and have a running game and a wide receiver core, that put, in my mind, on paper, that puts us ahead of some of these other teams, but I'm sure they're saying that as well. So, but
Maybe. So I saw a headline where Tennessee's just happy that the receiver that they drafted came back not fat.
yeah,
Right. I mean,
that he's practicing.
yeah. I mean, that's positive for us, dude.
It is.
I mean,
It is positive.
I know he's practicing. So maybe that's negative to us. Maybe we wanted him to come back fat. But if that is your headline, if that's what's grabbing attention, is that, look, this number 1
Right.
receiver isn't fat anymore. Well, then that's good for us.
Well, compare that to our guy looks very fast to this guy isn't fat.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take ours right now for sure.
Yes, I would. I haven't heard very much coming out of Colts camp, and I haven't heard anything really coming out.
I haven't really snuck a peek at them. Other than what you talked about, the fact that I forget that guy's name, the Arkansas receiver for the Tennessee Titans, is looking okay.
Yeah, I can't
all right.
help you with that.
He's attending. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Let's bring up the offensive line real quick. Just something to before we wrap things up. The thing of note is that Luke Fortner is working at center, which I think. Well, let me throw it at you, and you tell me what you think. Fortner's at center, Shatley's working at guard, and Little is working at right tackle.
Okay, so that's not in fact all true.
Okay.
Right tackle's being split between Walker Little and Jawan Taylor. And I'm okay with that. I actually like playing that center at center, getting as many reps as we can. Why? Shatley is a backup center. He played a lot last year. He played the year before that. Linder was always hurt. So
Yeah.
we know what Shatley can do. Like Shatley knows how to be a center. He knows how to be a guard.
But Fortner
Let-
played center in Kentucky, though.
And I get that. But in Kentucky does
Fair
not
enough.
have Kentucky doesn't have an NFL team. So it's different. I like that. Get the guy some reps because you may need him. Will he start? I don't know that he'll start. But put
Yeah.
it for once.
Flexibility.
Yeah, for once, let's really have actual open competition where an undrafted guy who we see beating the number, the second overall pick or whatever the guy is, and we see it, but because of the draft, because he was drafted higher, he gets the start. No, let's have a real open competition. Let these guys earn it. I'm fine with it. I think it's great. I like them splitting reps too at right tackle. Hopefully that's a real competition.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's about the best way you can look at it. I don't know that it means anything in regards to where where they will start, but it does mean they're getting work at a number of different positions. You have offensive line flexibility going in, and then whoever tends to play that, you then choose that direction to sort of and that will be something that will materialize, I believe, over time. In training camp, it'll iron itself out who they think is the starter at center and
Yes.
guard and right
Yeah,
tackle. My hope is that Walker Little takes right tackle away from Taylor. I've seen enough of Taylor. He just does not have the feet to stop the outside rushes, and he overcompensates, in my opinion, and it leads to other problems. I would love to see him come inside. I think it would fortify the offensive line greatly if that happened, and lead to more flexibility.
Well, maybe, but if he beats out Walker Little, what is that saying?
It says bad things about Little.
And it says that he wants it. I mean, Jawan Taylor has 3 years of experience. Walker Little has 1.
And
Yeah.
word is Little already looks better. That's
And
what
that's
I'm
fine.
hearing.
Yep. And if that works that way and Little takes that job, I have no problem with it. Give the job to the best damn player, regardless of where they were picked. That's all I'm asking.
So what was your thoughts when you heard the little blurbs about, which is weird. I heard them yesterday, I think, but I didn't hear them today, about Lawan Winningham, the wide receiver.
I have no idea who this guy is. This guy is he's an undrafted, he's an undrafted free agent, right? Undrafted rookie free agent out of Arkansas, Birmingham, right?
With that,
It's Arkansas, maybe it's Central Arkansas something. It's Arkansas something.
okay.
You know what? This gives me somebody to look at. Now I still want my boy Jeff Cotton. I'm still behind my boy
Yeah,
Jeff
you're a
Cotton.
Jeff Cotton guy, huh?
I thought he looked great last preseason. I don't know. I guess maybe Treadwell was tearing it up so bad in preseason, was killing it when it didn't
Treadwell
matter.
came on toward
So,
the end of the year. The last
Yeah,
4
no,
games,
and-
Treadwell was killer,
Yeah.
man. Him and Trevor had a connection, and they're continuing it in the training camp as
Yeah.
well. So, so I like what you brought up. It gives you somebody to watch in the preseason, is what you're saying,
Yep.
as far as Winningham, because we know they're not going to play the starters much, at least to start for sure.
Beware. I don't want to touch on this until we do our next one on next Tuesday. If you want, we'll go over the game, but just be wary of this specific game. That's all I'm gonna say. Not the Jags are gonna tear it up, but if we come out and we get thrashed 60-0, I'm not really gonna be upset.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and reason for that is when you look at it, Trevor won't play at all. Bether, I think, is still hurt. So we got 2 quarterbacks, Luton and the other guy. And the other guy was in the USFL. He's not having a very good camp. We don't really have a quarterback, is what I'm
Right.
saying. So I'm not upset.
Well,
but I'm not
it'd be
expecting
good to
much.
get some running game practice in, maybe.
Yeah.
AFC South is going to be a running division. On that point, let's talk running backs also just quickly. How do you expect Robinson and ETN to be used now that Robinson
I
appears to
expect
be on
ETN to
track?
start.
And
ETN will start the season. I expect him at certain times to go over to slot to break out on third downs
yeah,
and be like a tweener third down receiver sort of deal. I think at some point James Robinson starts to come in, and then it will shift where Robinson will get carries 1 and 2, ETN will get carries on 3, and then it will be sort of split in time between the two from there.
what will be interesting to of note to watch too is ETN on his blitz pickups. It's not something you see when you try to get highlights. They're going to show everything else, especially a guy that scored so many times. They're not going to
Was
show
so
his pickups.
electrifying.
But in the NFL, if you want to be on the field in crucial moments,
You got to do the blitz
you gotta do
pickup.
the blitz pickups. And so if he can do that, because Robinson does everything. He just ain't super fast. But then that's a really nice 1-2 punch. Offensive line rounds out. We might be looking at a actual NFL football team for
Maybe.
once.
Hey, don't get these people all hyped up for nothing, man.
Hey, I'm just saying the possibility exists that instead of 7 years between, it will be 5. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe.
It could be 5. We're chipping away at it. We could have a decent year after 5 years instead of 7. That's all. That's not
that
too
could
much
be
to ask.
that very well could be the new norm.
And AFC South again, not exactly a bunch of
Giants,
powerhouses
yeah.
necessarily, especially in relative position to the AFC. Generally speaking, I like our division. I'll take ours out of any of the other ones. Although AFC East isn't that bad. They got that Bills team, and we can handle those guys. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, well,
We did that one game.
yeah.
That probably
that's all.
throttled us like 6 minutes.
That's all we got. So,
Yeah.
but all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Please hit that like, subscribe button. Drop us a comment if you want to discuss anything we talked about. We're always open. I think we got a comment last week. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Yes, one comment.
Did you respond?
I responded.
Oh, okay.
I just told them thank you for the comment.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys. Duval.
Duval! You gotta cue me up on that.
We need a bat signal. Yeah.